podcast producer once told me, hey, Huete, if you are running out of ideas, then maybe this is not the podcast you should be making. And I was literally in the middle of making my podcast, so I was deeply offended, but also he was right. I'm going to teach you in this video how to make sure that the podcast you're working on is actually one that has longevity, that you know you will have lots of episode ideas for before you begin. Hey, I'm Huete. If you're new here, I'm a podcast producer. I'm also the creator of the Emerging Voices Podcasting Accelerator, where I help people create shows that actually connect with their ideal audience and that is unique to them. And if you are an aspiring podcaster, you will really appreciate my 10-step guide to launching your podcast. You can find the link to it in the show description. And if you're wondering, why should I listen to this lady? Here are a bunch of the podcasts that I have produced over the past 5-6 years. So with that, let's get into the video. First things first, you'll know that you're going to run out of ideas if your podcast concept is not super strongly baked in to who you are and what you really care about. And some signs that this might be happening are, number one, if your episodes are kind of random and they don't really have any cohesive pattern between them. If it's super difficult for you to come up with podcast titles. And finally, if you can't fill out this blank, which I require all of my Emerging Voices Accelerator students to be able to fill out, okay? Podcast name, whatever your show is called, is a podcast about the topic, where, and then tell us what is unique about the show. It exists because, reason 1, 2, 3. The show solves for that by, tell us how the show addresses the problem. Unlike other shows of its kind, you tell us what sets your show apart. When your concept is half-baked, the result is inconsistency. This is why most podcasters never get past 3 episodes. I'm not making that up. That's like actual podcast data. Most podcasters don't get past 3 episodes. So you're not going to fall into this pattern. And I'm also telling you this as someone who was once an independent podcaster, and I would just start and then stop because I just wasn't sure about what I was really making. Okay. So here's the foolproof way to actually make sure that there's a there for your podcast. Number 1, you are going to do a brain dump. What are all of the podcast episodes that you could see yourself making? Just give yourself 15-30 minutes and dump out every single idea that you could see yourself talking about, okay? Once you've done that, you should be able to see some common themes between these episodes. As an example, when I made my very first show, Depth and Candor, I did a brain dump. And I realized that there were some very common themes that came up in the episodes that in the topics that I wanted to cover. Even though the show was about how do you create a vibrant life, the common themes were about career, about mental health, and really about daily routines. So those were the main content pillars that I was going to be following in every single episode. I want you to do the same. Take some time to do your brain dump and then look at what the different themes are. Those themes are your content pillars. But here's where the magic really comes in. Once you've done your brain dump, you are now going to put it into a season outline. Okay. And this is the exact season outline that I use with my students. I'm going to walk you through it. And the reason we think in seasons is because I actually think making an always on show is a recipe for burnout. And this is why so many people don't actually make podcasts that last. And second of all, because it's virtually impossible to think about all of the potential episodes that you might want to make. Instead, what you can think about is, what does it look like to make 8 to 12-ish episodes? Not that your season has to be that many episodes. It can be a little less, it can be a lot more. But the idea is that you give yourself a set number of episodes to make so that your brain knows that there is a point in time at which you're going to stop and take a break. No matter how much you love your show, you are going to need a break at some point because nothing in nature is always on. And you, my dear, are a part of nature. So embrace the concept of taking breaks. So let's go back to the Google Sheet. You have created your messy brain dump, you have a bunch of ideas, and you see that some of them fall into very clear themes, and that's what you're gonna follow. What you're gonna do is you are going to put each of those episodes into this Google spreadsheet. You can make it yourself, or you can download a copy of this exact one, which we use in Emerging Voices, in the show description below. In the first column, we have episode number. And then we look at the topic. So what exactly are you going to be covering in this episode? And then you want to talk about whether this is an episode with a guest or if this is a solo episode. And then you want to cover what kinds of questions you're going to be exploring in each episode. And this is just to get your brain to start thinking about what's actually in the content of these episodes instead of you just thinking about these episodes very theoretically. Next column, we have the mini transformation. This is what you hope your listener is going to experience over the course of your episode. Now, transformations are a really critical part of how you think about your listener experience. Everyone who comes to your show is coming because they are looking for some sort of solution or some sort of shift in the state that they're in. So maybe they're bored and they want to listen to your show to be entertained so that by the end of the episode, they feel different than how they felt when they came to your show. Some people are coming to your show because they have a health problem and they want you to tell them how to solve it. By the end of the episode, they are transformed in that they have new information that they can put to use, okay? So think about the mini transformation that you hope your listener is going to experience with each episode. And finally, what kind of action do you want people to take after listening? So I'm gonna walk you through an imaginary example of a show that I sometimes play around with potentially making. It's a show about creative resilience, okay? So episode 1, the topic would be why creative resilience matters more than talent. And this would be a solo episode. And the questions I would explore include, what does it really take to bring our ideas to life? Why am I equipped to talk about this, me personally as the host? What is the creative resilience framework that I use with my students? And then how can anybody apply it to their life? So for the mini transformation, my primary listener would come in feeling like they want to be a creator, but they don't have what it takes. And I want them to leave the episode feeling like there is hope because they see themselves in my story. Now, the call to action would be asking them to join my newsletter and offering them a copy of the creative resilience framework that I use with my students. So this is just one example of a row that you would fill out. And you would just do this for every single episode that you are thinking about creating. And don't worry about being a perfectionist. Like, if you don't have 5 questions for every single episode, that's okay. We just want your brain to start getting into the rhythm of understanding what is in the contents of this episode and why this thing needs to exist and how excited you would be about actually making this podcast. I want to be clear, this is not the same thing as a production plan. A production plan is a completely different document that you would use to make sure episode over episode you have all of the different pieces to make your show as good as it could possibly be. If you want me to make a video on how to create a production plan, I would be happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments below. This, what we're talking about, is really an idea validation step. This is the step that you'll want to take if you feel like there's something here for you, but you're not quite sure if you should pursue it. And if you fill this out and you still find yourself doubting the validity of these podcast ideas, then there's a really simple solution for that. You can go out and ask your ideal listener if they would listen to each of these episodes that you have outlined. And you want to pay attention to your listener's body language. If they say something like, yeah, I'd listen to that, ask them some follow-up questions. Tell me more. Would you really listen to that? Why? Why not? And if they say, no, I'm not sure I'd listen to that, you can ask them, tell me why. What would you like to hear instead? What kind of episode could I actually make that would be a no-brainer for you to listen to? And throughout this process of you asking these questions, you're paying attention to body language, you're paying attention to the way that people are responding, because all of us have a bias to be most of us have a bias to be nice and to tell the person that's working on a project, yeah, sure, I'd listen to your project, and then not actually listen to it. So you want to be really strategic and thoughtful about how you ask them questions and how you listen to their responses. I know I have a really great show if I tell ideal listeners the show concept and they say, oh my God, I have goosebumps. Or if they're like, wait, is that a show that already exists? Wait, are you actually making that show? Then I know there's something here that they would really excitedly listen to. And not everyone's gonna say that about the show that you're making, but it's worth you really paying attention to the nuances in how people respond. Again, this is only if you're trying to validate whether the ideas that you've written down are actually ideas that other people would engage with. And it's not just any other people, it's your ideal listener. And the truth is, with any podcast that you're creating, every episode is a little bit of an experiment. You are always putting something out there, seeing what kind of response it gets, and then tweaking, making changes before you put your next episode out there. Okay? So I really want to encourage you to have a playful experimentation mindset around this, and to just remember that if you are making a show that is around your story, your curiosities, and your zone of genius, it's going to be very hard for you to run out of ideas. In fact, over time, season over season, you are going to find that your concepts and your ideas are going to get deeper and more nuanced, which is going to make it very hard for anyone else to really compete with what you have created. If you've heard all this and you're like, okay, I think I want to make my podcast, you'll really appreciate the 10-step guide to launching your show. It walks you through the strategy, production, and community building pieces that you need to know before you actually start your show. And if you know that you need support with starting your show, you can book a discovery call with me below. We'll talk about your podcast concept, and if you are the right fit for the Emerging Voices Podcasting Accelerator, I'll invite you into the program. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, what is the podcast concept that you're so excited to create a whole season out of? Please tell me, because I want to hear your ideas. Just the same way you listen to me, I want to listen to you, okay? So I will see you in the next video.